it's Aliya from Soap Cult. Welcome back to our day 2 of the Halloween launch vlog. In our last video, I walked you through what I had done to prepare for our big Halloween launch, which for us is the biggest time of year. It's like it's like Christmas for most people. That's the time of year that everyone's shopping with us. And I walked you through how I forecast my stock quantities and how I sort of prepare my space and prepare the shipping boxes and samples and all those kinds of things. And let me tell you, you are never so far into business that you stop learning. In fact, I had a very, very big lesson last night, and yeah, all my preparations, I did not do enough. Nowhere near it. Yeah, last night went absolutely wild. So much so that for the first time ever, we had so much traffic on the website that it just about crashed. Like, I was trying to get the final stock quantities loaded so that we could actually go live, and I kept on getting booted out, and people were saying when they were trying to place an order they were having trouble making payment. And yeah, so I mean, it could just be a coincidence. Maybe there was something up with Shopify at that precise moment in time, or maybe it was traffic. I don't know. I'll probably never know, but I do know that it was a big learning lesson for me. So one of the most important things that I learned is for products where you can make more of them, say like melt and pour soap, for example. You would have seen in yesterday's video that I had a lot of products made, but not so much that I wasn't able to sort of quickly pivot and make more of another thing that turned out to be more popular, which can happen when you start to do, you know, marketing and you're encouraging other people to your brand that may not have shopped with you before. So like what you know about your existing customer base and your demographic is probably going to change when you get new people in the mix. So what I did is there's this cool thing in Shopify where you can set your stock quantity but then allow some things to oversell, and that's what I did. I'm so glad that I did, because some things were overselling in, you know, massive quantities, and if I didn't have that available for people, I would have missed out on those sales, and then I would have had unhappy customers. So it was completely worth doing it. Now I've got a pretty, you know, big couple of days ahead of me, and I'm just gonna, you know, quickly do this part of the video and then take you upstairs and, you know, basically start making some soap so I can be fulfilling orders ASAP. But yeah, I ended up with wasn't quite more than double, but it was a lot on last year. And it all happened very, very quickly. Most of the sales came through within the first like 30 minutes, but I was still getting sales, you know, through until like the early hours of the morning, as, you know, some people that might be night owls or shift workers were, you know, coming online to place their orders. So yeah, it was crazy. It was great. Yeah, I wish I had have actually had more stock made, which is always like the tricky tension thing, because like I was saying yesterday, you have to have those materials on hand in order to, you know, make those products, but you also have to have the money on hand to, you know, buy those raw materials. So yeah, it's this, and it doesn't matter what size business you are, like it's the cost of goods is like a massive consideration. I remember even when I worked at Lush, like a big cosmetic retailer, you know, there was like a finite limit of how much you could spend on raw materials to make the products for a launch. And even though you might predict that a particular product is going to do, you know, quite well, if you just don't have the capital there to get the things that you need in order to sell it, you know, you just can't do it. And that's sometimes how even really large companies have got you know, limited stock quantities of things. It's just there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes that, you know, your average customer, you know, probably wouldn't be aware of. So that's my ramble. I'm going to go and get into my comfy work clothes because I've just come back from doing the school run, and I won't be able to wear white today. I'm going to get really, really messy today, even with an apron on. So yeah, I'll see you again with some workout clothes on. Good morning. It is day 2 of the post-Halloween launch, and welcome to chaos. It's just so messy. I can't deal with it. My husband actually started helping out packing some orders last night, and, you know, bless his heart, he really did do his best, and he's picked correctly, but his tissue paper skills are not quite up to, you know, the standards that we have. So, but he has actually come up with another helpful suggestion. So we're going to make like a production line, because I've just got so many orders, and as I send them out, I'm just getting more in. So I'm not sort of getting past like that, you know, top level amount of orders, which is amazing. I'm not complaining at all. But we're going to pull the car out of the garage and actually have like some of our folding tables set up, and then just basically, you know, go through and really try and get at least half of the current orders out the door by the weekend. Today's currently Friday, so I'm hoping I'll be able to ship them all on Saturday. Yeah, so he was helpful in his own way, because now I've got, you know, an idea that I wouldn't have thought of myself. But let's see. In other exciting news, I've got another 3 wholesale inquiries since, you know, launching Halloween, and I think I'm kind of breathless. But I think that people are watching, like stockists are watching, and they're keeping an eye out for brands that, you know, just seem to have like a really strong customer base and have got a lot of engagement on social media and all that kind of stuff. So it just sort of shifted my perspective a little bit, that when you're building your brand and you're, you know, connecting with customers and stuff on social media and doing all those kind of things, like people are actually watching and they're looking for brands that would perform equally well in their store. So I've actually got to get back to them today because I've got so many emails, and my bookkeeper is chasing up a bunch of things because we're trying to like close off, you know, the end of financial year, because in Australia our financial year runs from the 1st of July to the 30th of June. And my bank is just a terrible bank, and their technology is shocking, and I've been having problems with them since April, that was so bad that in the end they ended up giving me some, I think, hush money. They ended up paying me to like go away, because there were so many issues with bank statements not being able to be produced, and they just couldn't help. And in the end I had to get a whole bunch of statements that should have been available online posted out to me in like the most antiquated way. The whole process took about 3 weeks, and then I had to scan about 100 pages of like double-sided documents to my bookkeeper so that they could actually do my accounts, and you know, just all sorts of problems like this. So yeah, the problems are ongoing, and it just, you know, hasn't ended up being any better. So I've got to do some things for my bookkeeper today. I've got to reply to some wholesalers. Oh, actually, in very exciting news, I'll do a separate video about this, but I wanted to talk just very briefly about business grants that might be available in your area from your you know, state government or federal government, or even local, perhaps. Because earlier this year, I think it was in May, I applied for a grant for small businesses, and there was an application process, and you had to have some legal documents and stuff and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I won it. So I have basically been given a grant of $5,000, which I can spend on certain things within the business. And for me, that's going to be website design. So my website at the moment is like, it's a basic Shopify template, basically. And it's not very functional, and there's a lot of things that I just can't sort of fix without getting a developer on board. So thankfully my brand designer, Laura from Xero & Co, she's also really good at websites, and she's a fantastic designer, and you know, she made my entire brand. So basically that's all being pre-arranged, and I need to get back to her. She's got a whole bunch of questions for me about you know, the website design, because one of the rules about this particular grant was that if you were successful and you received the money, you had to have the project completed within a certain amount of time. Like I think they revised the number. I think you've got 4 months now. So it's not going to be enough to have it done in time for Christmas. That's okay. It's more important just that it's, you know, done. So coming into the start of next year, I'm going to have, you know, a brand new website, and I'm so excited about that. But it does mean that I've got to think really, really carefully about what website copy I want to have where, and like what the structure of the website's going to be. And then I have to consider, am I going to continue doing my own product photography, or do I hire someone? Do I hire a professional copywriter to do certain things that I struggle to write myself, like my bio and my about me, and you know, all those kind of things where it's just, it's a bit hard to talk about yourself, right? Yeah, so there's just a lot of decision making. So basically I'm going to have as much of a like big production day as I possibly can, pack as many orders as I can, but then I need to start making melt and pour again, because I've run out of a lot of things. What Brad was stocking was, you know, packing for me last night. I can see in the boxes that some things are totally gone. So I don't think I exhale when I talk. I get breathless really easily. Like I can't do the circular breathing. So funny. There's a weird little fact about me. But anyway, so I just wanted to let you know that, you know, we're into day 2 and this vlog is ongoing, and yeah, orders are still coming in. Everything's great. But yeah, I need to get some of these orders out because Australia Post that we use, they're really under the pump at the moment, and they've actually had to do something they've not done before. I'm gonna sit down while I talk to you. That's better. Okay, this is my heat protection on this door. So basically that keeps a lot of the heat out in summer. It's not perfect, but you know, it does the job, more or less. It insulates. Where was I? So in Australia at the moment, we're trying to keep Delta under control. Some states are doing pretty well, and some states are in complete lockdown and have been for like over a month now. And that's beginning to flow on and really affect the postal service, because obviously people are shopping online more because many people can't leave their house, or they can't go within about, they can't go beyond like a 5-kilometer radius, and a lot of non-essential businesses are closed. Yeah, so the postal service is really under the pump. But in New South Wales and Victoria, which is like the most densely populated states that we have in Australia, they have been shut down in lockdown for a long time. And it's, yeah, the post office is getting affected now because there's limits of how many people you can have within a certain, you know, square meterage. And, you know, a lot of their workers are getting COVID, or they're in isolation because they've had a close contact or something like that. So yeah, it's affecting the postal service. They've actually, I'm just slightly exaggerating here, but they've essentially kind of shut down a lot of their services for about 4 days, just to try and clear the backlog and, you know, get people safely into the distribution centers and stuff, just to, you know, kind of clear this all out. Yeah, it's really important that I get as many things ready to go into the system for when stuff gets back to normal. And also just because people have ordered it and they want their things. Welcome to day 2. What are we now? We're like 9 minutes in of me waffling. Yes, welcome to waffle. Welcome to Aliya waffle. Yeah. All right, I'll check back in with you later. Now that I've got my first batch of orders packed up, now I'm going to just go and double check and make sure what size I've actually put that order in, and then go into the app that I have on my Shopify site and just work out which postal method is going to be best, whether I'm going to send it in its original packaging or send it as a flat rate. You know how I was talking about using your data and trying to predict what products are going to sell well? Well, let me tell you about a curveball. Okay, this is jack-o'-lantern soap, and all of my marketing for this guy did really well. And so I figured, okay, this is probably going to sell out, so I should make a lot of these. So I made a proportionate amount of these to how much interest I'd had on my social media and, you know, Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know what happened? They didn't actually perform as well as some of the other products that had less engagement on social media. So sometimes you can have a product that is, I guess, enticing, and I wouldn't really call it a loss leader because I'm not like losing money on these. They kind of point a customer in the direction of you. Something about it really appeals to them, and then once they're sort of in your shop, they find other products that they, you know, like slightly more. So it's really interesting. Sometimes you just do everything you possibly can to work out what's going to do well, and then there's a curveball and you just have to, you know, go with the data. So that's why I'm glad that I didn't make too many of everything, because this way I can be more responsive to what people are actually after. So on my invoices, I print, well, they're packing slips. I print them mainly just for me, because when I've got so many orders on the go, I just get a bit confused working off my phone. So I find this is the better way. And on each invoice, I write down a little note. It's either an N or an R, which indicates if it is a new customer, which means they get one of these cards, which basically has some information about us. If they're a returning customer, we've got a different card that has got space on there for me to write a little thank you note. So that's one trick that I do to make sure that you know, customers in the right part of their journey, I suppose, with me are still getting something very nice that's, you know, targeted to where they're at. Greetings! So it's now more than a week since we launched Halloween, and I'm happy to say that about two or 3 days ago, almost every single parcel had been shipped out. So what's my learning from that? Well, let's see. It just took so much longer than I expected. So in my mind, I thought, because I've got these new stockists on board and so many of them have placed Halloween orders, that I kind of thought that my Halloween season would be spread out, because some of those sales that I would normally get would be going to the stockists. But because I started playing around with Facebook and Instagram ads about a week before we launched, that really drove a lot of new customers to me. So instead of having a slightly smaller Halloween than last year, it ended up being so much more than I had have anticipated. There's a Halloween sort of themed magazine that comes out once a year in Australia, and I actually put a lot of my marketing budget for Halloween season into buying a half page ad, in this magazine. It's really hard to know how much that has been a traffic driver, because even though there was a discount code that could be used, it's only been used once, but it's difficult to know if people just perhaps haven't placed an order yet, or there's people that might come on board and buy the magazine between now and Halloween proper, and then go ahead and use that that discount code. But yeah, it's just a little bit tricky to know whether it's been successful or not. As it stands at the moment, I'd say that it wasn't, which is kind of a pain. That's also a problem with any sort of print advertising. Like when you're in other business areas, if you think about the amount of junk mail that you get, they just kind of put a lot out there and hope that some of it sticks, that someone's interested. Not everyone that you send something out to is going to be interested, so it's like a pretty non-targeted way of doing things. So I guess in that respect, Facebook and Instagram ads, as much as they're not as targeted as they used to be, because with the iOS update that happened a few months back, there's not as many ways for you to sort of follow a customer's journey to get to you as there was before. It clearly is still very targeted, right, compared to, say, a magazine. Yeah, so that's kind of a learning. Some other things that I learned was that I didn't have enough samples made up. What I probably should have done, and this would have been smarter, instead of making up a bunch of samples and looking at it and going, oh, that seems like a lot, I should have thought to myself, well, if you're giving 2 to 3 samples out with every order, how many orders do you expect to get? And making sure that I've got enough samples made up in like a wide range of products, so that I'm not like sampling something that someone has already purchased, because that's already, or like is buying at that point, because that's kind of something that I find frustrating as a customer. If I get if I buy a product and then a sample of that same product arrives in the box, it's like, how's that helpful? So in hindsight, what I should have done is looked at my projected sales and then added on like 10 or 20%, so that I had more product made up than I really needed, and then look at if I just assume that most orders will be large, which is typically what they are, rather than like small 1 or 2 soap orders. They're typically the entire range, or like 2/3 of it or something like that. That means that I'm going to want to have about 3 samples, maybe even more. So I should have done like, let's say I think I'm going to have 200 orders, then I need to work out what's 200 times 3, and have all that done up. So that I would do that again next time. The other problem that I ran into was I hadn't really counted my shipping boxes. Now in hindsight, this is something that it's actually kind of a silly mistake, because if I know from experience that people are going to be placing larger orders, then I know that I need to have my larger size shipping box. I've still got enough left to like fulfill orders, but it's tight, it's tight. So earlier in this week, I went to go and order some more of those shipping boxes, and they don't have my black color. They're just like the plain, white kind of color, which sucks, because then it's not as branded. People sort of know to look out for the black box. Australia, 2 of our major states, New South Wales and Victoria, they're under a pretty strict lockdown at the moment, because we've currently got Delta outbreaks throughout the country, and where I live is currently okay at the moment, but most of my suppliers for everything are outside of the state. So yeah, that's been a bit of a challenge. So I've had some supplies that were ordered you know, well in advance that just haven't actually arrived. So that's kind of a thing. So I'm going to make another video about this particular thing, which I'm going to talk about next, which is the customer journey and customer journey mapping. So I'm kind of annoyed at myself because I actually know all these principles and I've used them before in previous jobs, but for some reason I've got this blind spot when it comes to my own business. It's like I was on like a co-working call with Modern Soap Making earlier on today, because I'm a member of that community, I suppose. And we were doing, co-working. And one of the people there mentioned that they were doing their Instagram marketing, and she was writing it for Modern Soap Making, and that she usually finds it easier to write them for Modern Soap Making than she does for her own business. And I think that's really true. Like, if you're employed by someone else and you're kind of working for a business and you don't really feel the same sense of ownership that you do when it's your own business. And I think sometimes you can get a bit of analysis paralysis with your own, you know, business, because, you know, it's very special to you, and sometimes you just can't see the forest for the trees, right? So all of that to say, had cash flow have allowed me, I would have purchased those supplies sooner than I did, because I guess we all kind of know that even if we aren't in like a current severe outbreak, that can change at any point, and it doesn't take long for those case numbers to climb, and then you know, there's like lockdowns and the post is really badly affected and a lot of people start shopping online, and you know, the whole system's really inundated. So that's on me. I should have thought about that, but you know, I'll learn for next time. But overall, I mean, Halloween season has just been incredible, and we're only just at the start of it. Like, as I'm filming right now, it's the 10th of September. We launched on the 1st of September, and it was only probably 2 or 3 days ago that I had majority of the orders out. There's a couple that are held up at the moment. I think there's only 4 that are held up at the moment because I was waiting on supplies that have since come in just a couple of hours ago, so I'll be able to go ahead and make those remaining orders and get them shipped out tomorrow. I guess it'll took a lot longer than I expect. Anyway, that's the update for now. So I'm going to post my earlier video and then edit this one up. So what I'm going to go do now is actually measure out a whole bunch of oils, because I need to make a lot more cold processed soap just to replenish some Zodiac soaps that have been requested. Also some Halloween things that are getting quite low in stock, so they'll definitely sell out in the meantime until I can get that until that's all cured. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.